I wish we could be today in two places. One, Jerusalem, and the second, somewhere in the Eastern tradition, place of worship, the Orthodox churches, because this feast is for them one of the most beautiful, one of the oldest, by the way, dedicated to the Blessed Mother. In Western tradition, that was coming slowly. We have to understand that in the beginning of the church, the local communities celebrated just the special days for themselves. And later on, the more influential they become, that kind of celebration was extended. So the Feast of Presentation was first celebrated in Jerusalem on the basis of memory of Mary. You remember, after the collapse of Jerusalem, the Romans turned this beautiful holy city into the city dedicated to the pagan god Jupiter. And Christianity was completely vanishing, as well as Judaism. That was strict pagan city. That was the punishment. And after 313, when Constantine became the emperor and gave Christianity freedom, his mother, Saint Helena, went to Jerusalem, and she was putting lots of resources to excavate and to find everything, whatever was, about Mary and Jesus. And that's the famous term, memory of Mary. And later on, after the Basilica she built, and that was exactly this day, November 21st, 543, a new basilica was elevated in Jerusalem, dedicated to Santa Maria Nova, St. Mary the New. And that basilica celebrated the Feast of Presentation of Mary in a very local community. After it spread to Constantinople and to Rome finally. And actually we don't have any biblical proof that Mary was presented to the Lord. There is the prescription in Leviticus, in the book of Moses, that after giving birth, every woman, every mother must to come 40 days after for purification, after giving birth to a son. After giving birth to a girl, she must wait 80 days. You're so special, lady. 80 days for purification. That was kind of like punishment or something. No equality anyway. And there's never, that was a tradition, but never did Moses' prescription that the girl, firstborn girl, must be dedicated to the Lord. It was always about firstborn male. But the tradition says that Mary was brought to the church 80 days after. That's one tradition. The second tradition is related to Apocrypha of St. James. Apocryphal gospel, remember, only 4 gospels are in the Bible, canonical. But before the canon was shaped, that was 12 gospels. And the church chose which ones, original and inspired and on and on. But those Apocrypha also have very important role in the tradition. For example, how do we know that Mary's parents were Joachim and Anna? There's nothing in the New Testament. So how we know that? From Apocrypha, from the Gospel of St. James. And the Gospel of St. James is dedicated particularly to the Blessed Virgin Mary. So we know the names, that was Anne and Joachim, there was Beverly, they were praying to have a child, and they make kind of dedication to the Lord that if the child is going to be born, never mind boy or a girl, it's going to be Toby, dedicated to God. And what happened? A baby girl was born, and the tradition was in Jerusalem that the little girl was brought to the temple for service in the most holy of holies, and they were the most holy, beautiful, innocent girls. And between sometimes even as much as 3 years old to the time of puberty, those girls were served in the temple, and they were considered the angels, kind of incarnate angels. And the moment when the puberty come, they were dismissed. I mean, do I scandalize you? No. They were dismissed, and they were ready to be married. So, but those virgins who served in the temple, according to the Jewish tradition, they cannot just be married to whomever, whatever the boy will find. The temple designated the holy man to protect that virgin, and they were actually always become virgin. So imagine, there is kind of logic not coming together. So the temple, imagine, choose, if we follow that logic, Joseph to be the protector of that holy virgin. And very often, those protectors, which were legal husbands, they were kind of earthly person. So if we just put those together, that will make a little bit of sense. Of course, this is not in the gospel canonical, so we don't have to accept it on the basis of our faith. But it's a beautiful story why Joseph and Mary never had their own children, because that was the purpose of that marriage, was to protect the virginity of Mary. And so, in the litany to Saint Joseph, we have those beautiful titles. One of them is related to Joseph, who is protecting Blessed Mother. So anyway, so we honor that. Was she serving in the temple or not? We don't know. Beautiful story. Eastern Church, they do believe absolutely that she was. But for us, important is that, everything in our lives, God is preparing us in the process. We cannot become overnight saints. We cannot become overnight, dedicated to God. Everything started earlier, and probably we know from our own experience that those spiritual things are really very much connected with the childhood we have. And we have converts or people who discover God, later on in age, but normal process is related, to those beautiful moments when we start learning how to pray, when we make first sign of the cross, whatever the way we do, when Grandma is showing us the church. Remember, this is the very natural moment when we are growing into that depth of the Lord and connectedness with the Lord. That's what we honor today. That's why in Western tradition, today, for example, Carmelites, they have very special celebration in the novitiates they have. Other seminarians in Rome, they have today very special also dedicated day of retreat to the Blessed Mother, because that is reminding us about spirituality is a process, and every single day we are in it. Of course, we cannot build only on the memories from our childhood, memories from First Communion and something. Those moments will stick with us all the time, but we have to build. And today is another day to build something, to open ourselves more to the grace of God. And that living process is something really the heart of our spiritual maturity. And again, remember, maturing spiritually doesn't mean that today it's going to be most holy than yesterday. That today we're going to just fly, or we're going to have levitations, and we're going to have mystical experiences. No. We may have Gethsemane moment. We may suffer. We may have doubts. We may have darkness. But everything is included in the spiritual maturity. So important thing is that we are always open to the grace of God. And Blessed Mother is, for us, patroness of that incredible process. Let us pray.